Hello, friends. Hello. We're live. We are live here on YouTube. If you are new to this channel, then go ahead and hit subscribe and go ahead and hit the bell to get notified. But if we do more, when we do more of these videos and these interviews. So we are here with Heidi Mills from Heidi Mills Writes. That's on Instagram, her handle on Instagram. I don't know if you have another one on a different platform. Do you?
That's it. It's Heidi Mills Writes.
Okay, Heidi Mills Writes on Instagram. So we're here to talk about letting God write your story. And I've known Heidi for a while, just as an acquaintance through a ministry that we both have been a part of. And as I've been following her for many, many years, I noticed that she created this account, and then her posts started to talk about subjects and topics that really interested me, and her language about it really spoke deeply to my heart and resonates with me. And I think it will with you too. So this is Heidi Mills, and I would love to welcome you to this channel and this audience.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Heidi, if you would just tell us a little bit about your history with God to start out with.
My history with God, that's a big question. I gave my life to the Lord again at the age of 21. So I've been walking with the Lord now for 19, 20 years. And he's taken me through a lot of different things. And I think what we talked about today, or talking about today, is letting him write your story when it's not maybe the story you would have chosen or the way you would have written it yourself. So I think my history with God is a lot of seeing him move through every part of my story and bring redemption and goodness out of pain, out of disappointment, out of the things that I wouldn't have wanted. Yeah.
So I think that might be very relatable for a lot of people. I don't know about anyone watching right now. I do have my phone up in case anyone interacts with us so I can get any questions or anything. But I feel like that is something that a lot of people experience and maybe fall off the faith train over the subject matter of unexpected pain and just the reality that life brings pain, even if you're a believer.
And I don't know why that's surprising.
Right.
You know? It's not that it's not talked about, but for me, I'm constantly surprised and I'm like, why is this happening? And just for fun today, I went on to YouVersion and typed in trials and only looked in the New Testament. And I mean, if you see how many times it's talked about that you will encounter trials, don't be surprised when you're in the fire. You will have relational issues. You will have disappointment. You know what I mean? It's in there.
Yeah, but I feel like most of the time, unintentionally, we believe more highly of ourselves. We think that's not going to happen to me. And therefore, because of that, we also don't, I was just thinking about this today, that we actually don't do the work to prepare. You know, we don't realize, for me, that's just simply saying, showing up every day to cultivate my relationship with God. Yeah. Because if I don't, then things smack you across the face and you're kind of just left out there hanging, you know, trying to get back to the stability or whatever it is that, you know, of your relationship with the Lord and believing. Also, just our history with, you know, in our families as well, kind of sets us up for, you know, we have belief systems we don't realize that we have.
I think it was really important what you said, that most of us don't prepare. And a lot of the ways I think we don't prepare is we try to avoid the hard things or the painful things or the grief-filled things. And we really want to come up out of those really quickly. instead of letting God go deep into those places with us and really bring full healing, we kind of put a Band-Aid on it and move on, or find the silver lining on the cloud. And, a lot of us, for me particularly, I just had a lot of unprocessed wounds. So when something big came that shook me to my core, guess what else was there? All the rest of it was there. And, it's that preparing, what you're talking about, getting prepared for things that you don't expect, is that letting Jesus into those places. There's a quote I really love.
Yeah, I love how you said unprocessed wounds there, because this is something I just talked about on Clubhouse, if anybody knows what Clubhouse is, with a couple other gals. Actually, Megan and another friend of mine I've met online, Lauren, but the room was all about, taking responsibility. And whilst I understood that before, the language of taking responsibility, that word for me just opened up a different understanding and thought process about my own experience with avoiding pain, and also avoiding the responsibility or the understanding that I had a choice
somewhere in there, right?
Some of the stuff. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're not.
You didn't cause everything.
Right.
But you responded. We respond, and we're responsible for our responses.
Right.
That's a very hard truth to come to. It takes being a powerful person.
You know what? And I have to say this because this is how I feel. It does not feel powerful.
No, it doesn't. It's weakness. It's embracing your utter weakness. I was going to say there's this quote I love by Peter Scazzero. I'm going to read it because I won't quote it correctly, but the degree to which we're willing to give Jesus access to what's deeply beneath the surface of our lives is the degree to which we will experience freedom in him. So we have to be really honest with ourselves in those moments of pain. We may not have been the one who caused the pain, but what was our response? And what are we responsible for in that? What needs to be taken to Jesus?
I really believe this is a topic and the conversation of the hour, honestly, in the believing community, especially, because I'm just going to highlight us believers as you're watching and engaging either now or in the future. It's our responsibility, knowing God and knowing, the best way to live life, to actually choose to engage in this process of our response. I mean, it's everyone's responsibility, but I really feel of conviction as a believer to get into this place where I am in a constant cycle of giving it to the Lord, allowing him to tell me, and then receiving that, give it, receive, rather than, I've just been marinating a lot on, the concept of not judging ourselves, because whilst we are harsh with ourselves, we also deny a lot of stuff because it's so hard to accept that, you need to do some work especially in this situation, when it isn't created by you. You didn't create the circumstance or the situation. And it feels like, well, why should I have to?
Right.
That's how I feel.
Why am I being punished for other people's choices? They sinned. But what am I doing when I'm doing that? I'm elevating myself up as if I'm better, as if I would never fall in that way, as if I would never make those choices. And that means I'm not really knowing what I'm capable of. And so that's
why we need God to show us.
And that deep work of digging in to actually reveal what you're capable of helps you not judge others. not judge yourself. You know, it's interesting you say you've been marinating on that. I've been kind of marinating on the 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself, and what it takes to really love yourself and receive God's love for who you really are. You can't love others until you let him into all of those places. You feel his love in all those places, and then you can give that again out. So
I agree. I've been, I mean, this all relates, you know, and same for me with that. It's like a rude awakening almost, to realize that if you are actually operating in the first 2 commandments, then you are receiving the love of God in all of the areas of your life, being completely transparent and vulnerable. But today, I know this is crazy, but while I was taking a bath and getting my hair done, I was thinking about the fact that God sees us through Jesus.
mm-hmm.
And because it's like that whole idea of put on Christ, meaning that this is fresh thinking for me, so bear with me with my language, but just the idea that he's already paid the price for all of those things inside of us. The darkness that we are acknowledging, it's literally already paid for and done with. Right. And we're literally, by acknowledging it, handing it over and choosing not to recreate that stuff. And and knowing that God sees us through that lens of his son means like we can see ourselves through that lens, which is like, you know, perfection.
Yeah, I love the way the Passion talks about in Romans 8, where it says not returning to a spirit of bondage. In the Passion translation, it says not returning to that spirit of never being good enough. You've been given the spirit of full acceptance, and you no longer have to return to that never being good enough. And that really ministered to me, because that's something that I've struggled with my whole life, of feeling like I had to do something to be good enough, or be something to be good enough, even coming to God, you know. But when you see yourself as a child, the way he sees you, with his love that is not conditional, his love that is just based on the fact that you are, when you can receive that, you're in that full acceptance. You're no longer living like an orphan. You know, you're able to love others from that place too.
And I'll just put another lens on that. That makes me think of how I processed that, not feeling like I was enough. I always felt second choice, which is really the same thing with a different angle. Yeah. You know, not feeling like you were ever good enough, or, you know, you could never win kind of thing. You're always the second choice. And I don't even know where that came from. You know, it's like, we don't know where this stuff is coming from. It could come from generation past, or just simply the fall, or, you know, words that were spoken over us. Lots of different reasons why it's there probably. But another thing, I feel like we don't really have to focus on so much figuring out why it's there, but that it's there, and that it's not how God views us. And that's not the story he's writing for us. I'd like to know if there's any particular story that you'd want to share about your own life and coming to this place of surrender, which that's kind of how I think of it. Yeah. Maybe you think of it differently.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, the surrender where it's like, I let go of my own idea and I let you tell me how to walk this out.
Yeah, for me, I think the biggest moment of that the catalyst for the transformation that I've experienced most recently happened in the fall of 2019. and my life as I knew it completely shattered in a million pieces on the floor. And I honestly didn't know if it could be repaired. And everything that I believed was tested, everything that I thought was tested, I was basically, everything crumbled to the ground. And what was tested is, where's the foundation? So that was the catalyst that drove me to pursue the inner healing journey that I went on. So it became the catalyst for transformation. It was other people's choices. It wasn't choices that I made, but I was in the debris of that storm, and my whole life was. And I guess I hear what you're saying. Everybody's on their own journey at what point. For me, it's been really important to find out where I came up with those thoughts or that idea. And that's been the journey I've gone on, is where did that come from? You know, I know that's not God. That wasn't his original intent for me. So where did that come from? And, you know, at the time, at 2019, I guess I described it like being a big ball of grief and pain. And each one of those instances was just like unraveling part of that big ball of grief and pain one by one, and allowing Jesus to bring healing for me. And so my healing journey was very personal, but it does involve other people. And there was, you know, it was a marriage crisis, really, is what happened. And so my husband and I had to decide to individually get our healing and then work on restoration with each other. I think that these moments can come many different ways. They can come when you're surprised by disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. They can come when you're surprised that a beloved family member that you've been praying and standing in faith for healing dies. I think, you know, I mean, these moments can come that rock us and shake our foundation. And then we're left looking at the pieces and saying, God, what are you going to do here? And he's super faithful. And he doesn't just leave. He doesn't even rebuild the same thing. He takes all those pieces, puts them back together in something completely new and different. And, you know, it's, my friend Ashley Land says that Romans 8:28 is a matter of survival, that he works all things, you know, like she says, I have to believe this. It's a matter of survival, that he works all things for my good. Well, Romans 8:28 can't be understood without the context of suffering, which comes right before that verse, is, you know, none of these sufferings are as good as the glory that's going to come. And that can't be understood unless you understand that Romans 8, I have the spirit of full acceptance. So it's like, I understand my identity. I know suffering is part of the walk. You didn't lie to me and tell me that wasn't going to happen, but yet, no matter what happens, you will take everything and work it together for my good, because you're a God of redemption. It's what you do.
I do think that it's important to, like, the whole responsibility thing is an important conversation, only because a lot of times when we're surprised by pain, we do come to God with, like, you know, all of those emotions of how could you, and somewhat pointing the finger, like, you know, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Like, God isn't afraid of that. So right. Like, when I say that, it's just acknowledging our process. Like, for me, right. I'm taken wrong in my personal life a lot when I say stuff like that. But I want to be clear, when I say stuff like that, in my mind, it's like, that's really, I need to acknowledge the process, and that God isn't actually afraid of our process. He wants to be a part of our process and involved in it. And
he's not afraid to wrestle
right
with us.
Yeah, he's not afraid. He's not afraid of the darkness either. Like, he's not afraid of, you know, the Bible says that the light is as dark dark is as light to him. And all that means is that there's nothing hidden from him.
Right.
So it's like, just bring it over there because it's already visible. You know, he already knows about it. And that reaction or response, he's expecting it.
Right.
But I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I was going to say that how you're talking about that ball of
Big ball of grief and pain.
yes, grief and pain. I was thinking, yes, it's about traveling to the root or the core of the subject and allowing the light to get into all of those crevices. That totally is another language, revelatory language for for me and probably people out there about you know, we say let the Lord see, let him in, but really what we're saying is that you gotta allow that process right there to happen, where the unraveling, and leave room and space for it. I think people are also surprised by how long it takes them sometimes, and it gets frustrating. It's like, I just wish I could be done with the process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
when we go to heaven, we will be.
Right. That's the hope that the word gives.
Until then, we're being sanctified. We're picking up our cross daily. We're going from glory to glory to glory. I hope, you know, when I don't want to stop going from glorious level to glorious level.
Right. And this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing here on this public facing forum. It's like, come on, if you want to go glory to glory, I want to go with you and I want to help you. Like, I know that this motivates me because I have to show up because this is how God has chosen to help me to show up and to do the things and be held accountable in some way. You know, I want to show up for others and love others well. I don't think I'm perfect at anything. I just am like, God, I'm not maybe the right choice, but this is what God does. He uses the weak things of the world to shame the wise. He takes what's broken and into pieces and he makes something beautiful out of it. And I was just envisioning the ashes and thinking about that today. It's so fun how God knits everything together, because I wasn't really thinking in relation to our conversation. But this week has been all about this. And so I imagined this pile of ashes and a swirl of the fragments of those ashes coming up into a beautiful dancing figure. And I mean, if you could just allow the Lord, which is what you're saying to do, and what we're saying to do about letting God write our story, is allowing the Lord to show us how he can make something beautiful. But we do have to be willing. I like that you said that too, that you had to choose and your husband had to choose separately to go on your own paths of healing and then together. And I think that's going to speak volumes to some people that might be in the same similar situations. And also a core verse that's similar to 8:28, Romans 8:28. I don't know where it's at. I think it's in Psalms. This is me. But that he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. And I just think of the process where you said you're showing up for it, you know, and that's literally diligently seeking God is like really mostly on our part showing up for the work he wants to do in us and allowing him to do it.
I think my heart is somehow, I hope, along the way, whether it's through writing or other things, is to inspire people to go on that journey before your whole life falls apart.
Yes.
Because for me, that unraveling was necessary because I had been the one holding everything together. You know, I was strong. I knew how to pull my bootstraps up. I joined with groups that talked about pulling your bootstraps up all over and over and over again. And then at some point you run out of bootstraps and there are no more bootstraps. And then you have to surrender. So I guess my heart would be for people to choose surrender like learn from my mistakes, choose surrender on the front end, choose surrender before the crisis hits. Go ahead and let God do that unraveling now. Probably be a lot less painful.
I love it. I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, that's how I feel. I'm like, what can I do to help that there would be a resilience built through the connection that you have with the Lord and through the safety that he provides, you know, that it's okay to allow him in. But I think the problem with pain and with people, including myself, is like you literally just have so much blindness. Until God actually, I mean, there's definitely active pursuit. And that's what I'm talking about. When you do daily time with the Lord, there's not going to be a time where you won't have the Lord bringing stuff up that might need to be dealt with, you know. But when I think about it, I think, gosh, you know, sometimes we have to have the pressure to actually surrender to that degree, you know. It's like we somehow believe that we can keep going without that degree of surrender and be fine.
Well, and I thought I was fine. I was fine, quote unquote, fine.
Well, and you can say no to answering any questions you don't feel ready to answer. But my thought was, you know, looking back, do you feel like there were signals and signs that you needed to do something before you actually
Absolutely
did?
Absolutely. I think there's always fruit. So you look for the fruit in your present day life, and the fruit in your present day life always has a root.
Right.
So once I started understanding different fruit that was in my life, I was like, oh, I'm not just this way. This is attached to a belief system that I formed because of this pain. That's usually when it's formed, right? You have a painful situation. You make decisions after that situation. You form beliefs about yourself, about others, and about God. And if those beliefs aren't lined up with scripture, that structure is built in your mind improperly. It shouldn't be there. It needs to be torn down. And a new one needs to be built that is in line with scripture, that is in line with the right view of God. So these things happen very subtly. You don't get off course overnight. It's like little tiny decision by little tiny decision. But once I, walked through the inner healing and I saw what some of this fruit looks like in my life, then I was like, oh, okay. I'm not just that way. That's not my personality. That's actually just signs of brokenness that can be healed. And you know what's really cool, Rachel, is I'm not into the personality stuff. I'm really not. I'm like, I don't love it. But I did, for fun, take a personality test after this process, and I completely changed. So the one that I was before to the one that I test at now, the one I test at now is more in line with the child that I remember being. Whereas the other one was really just the symptoms of pain in my life.
I love that you're saying that, because for a long time, I never took personality tests because my personality is don't box me up.
Exactly. You don't know.
Because for some reason, I felt like that tied me down to something, like I had to be that now. Yeah. But part of the reason for that belief or that desire of mine was because I believe you change. Yeah. And I believe you can change. And at the time when I refused to take them, I felt like people used their personalities as an excuse for the behaviors that they were doing. And
that's a sacred cow you're bringing up.
I know, maybe that's another subject for
I do
another
not
day.
disagree. I just am saying that's a sacred cow you're bringing up.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I grew up in a very heavily prophetic environment. And so, and I would call myself in touch with the spiritual side of things and prophetic. Okay. Of course, the Bible says that the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus. So everyone is prophetic and that are believers. But all that to say is that I see that a lot in the arena of gifts as well, and it's like, well, I know something. It's the elevating self again, where it's like, just because you have gifts that are irrevocable does not give you an excuse for sinning, not loving people well, not being kind, presentation and all of that kind of stuff. But anyways, that's another subject.
I guess if I'm leaning on a specific personality definition of me, and I'm so sorry about the mail noise. I actually don't know how to turn it off. And I'm embracing those things and they're not in the identity of Christ in me, then I'm getting off, right? Like there's always my humanity. My humanity is there. But I'm talking about like saying I'm just this way and it's not in line with Christ being able to transform me into his likeness.
We're eye to eye on that.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that. I think that language really does matter. I've just been diving a bit into that whole process of your self-narrative, your internal, and I've been in this place. I think that my whole life, I'm just this person that evaluates myself a lot, especially when there's so much accusation around. But this is part of the way that you let God write your story. And that's how I'm going to tie this back in, because I tend to bring in some maybe other subjects or topics that don't seem to tie in. But in my mind, it ties in because when your self-narrative does not line up with what God says about you or how God sees you, then you're again writing your own story and you're choosing to, I hate the word choose somewhat because it's so hard to swallow that you're actually making choices, but you are.
Oh, see, that's so empowering to me when I think of God allowing us free will, like he's not controlling at all.
Right. I know, but I mean, I don't mean when I think about God allowing us to choose him, I think that's amazing. But when I think about the negative things that I'm choosing
with your free will,
I don't want to be the one choosing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I'm
yeah.
like, I wish I could put that choice off on someone, make it about someone else having done something outside here. And so therefore I'm choosing this.
Right.
But like we said before, it's really because of the pressure of pain and that we're trying to avoid and escape pain, whether it's from the outside or the inside. And really that, basically burying those things creates wedges and more brokenness in that. Anyways, I guess
it creates a lot of pressure, like a volcano.
Yes.
And the volcano is like plugged up with a little tiny wine cork. And at some point, that wine cork, sorry, the wine cork is gonna pop out, and then all of that stuff that's buried underneath there is just gonna erupt, where it's so much simpler than that. It's the pain that's buried alive stays alive. The pain that's nailed or it's buried alive stays alive till it's put to death on the cross. If those things are just taken to the cross and put to death, yeah, it's uncomfortable for the moment. It's painful for the time that you're dealing with those things. But in the long run, that pain gets taken care of quickly instead of allowing all that pressure over years to be built up. Sorry about my visual.
Oh no, I love it. I love it. I'm like, yeah, that bring me the intensity, because I think for me, I need those kinds of visuals, you know. But can you is there any like practical tips you can give to everyone watching about how they can begin this surrender journey before chaos? Because I love this conversation. One of my friends said that their sister wanted to be married. This brings it back to the preparation thing. I am all about the preventative measures, but I want to be clear that no matter how much you prepare, there is probably going to be things that come up that you do not expect.
Oh, there definitely will.
You're going to be able to handle things better though, and a lot more of the things that come up through preparing your heart and your mind to do the process. I think you can do the process unbroken, more fluent.
You could be coming to it a little bit more whole, where like there's still going to be things you can't anticipate, and there's still going to be things that hurt, and you're still going to encounter grief, and you're still going to encounter other people's choices,
Right.
That's part of the human walk. But if you're coming more whole, yeah, I think it begins with praying scary prayers. Psalm 139 is a scary prayer. The end of that, search me, oh God. Sift through all, sift through everything within me. Show me anywhere that I'm on a path to pain and lead me. Well, you got to be willing, right? I guess it starts with being willing and then asking God to search your heart. And then being willing to tell yourself the truth when he brings something up, and I think when we see God rightly, when our belief and view of God is right, and we are not living as orphans, but we're living as children of God, then that's far less scary. If our view of God is that he's a taskmaster that we have to please, and we have to do the right things, and we're on our own, and we have to pull up our bootstraps, and we have to do everything right, then this is going to be a really scary process for you. And I would just submit that is not the right view of God.
Right.
So praying scary prayers and making sure that our belief systems are lining up with the word.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it back to the first step would probably be actually just getting to know God himself and knowing that he's a safe evaluator. He's going to be telling the truth. He doesn't lie. So when you know the character of God, and you know that he has unfailing love for you, that is unconditional, then you can easily step into, maybe not easily. I've been walking with the Lord since I was 5. I'm 44. I still have resistance. Okay. I still have to fight myself.
I think that's normal.
Well, I just wanted to be clear, because I want this to be about real life, real people, and the real truth about being a believer and walking it out in fear and trembling with the Lord, your salvation. You can say Jesus Christ is the Son of God and he died on the cross for everyone's sins, and you can be saved by grace. But all of this other stuff, when you want to be delivered and you want miracles happening in your life, you have to come into more agreement with God. You have to keep surrendering to him and keep going. So it's the process of surrender in my mind. And I think that I heard you say this, and this is how I feel, is that one of the first steps is to get to know God. How do you do that? Through prayer and reading the word and worship. I think those 3 elements, get into the word and discover who God is. And I would start in the book of Psalms, because that's just, for me, that's like an easier place to start. And it really does take you on a journey of the human heart, giving it back to the Lord, crying it out, give it back to the Lord, declaring who God is, telling God how you feel, declare who God is. There's a lot of that in there, which I think that most people would feel comforted by. But when you get in the word and you start in Psalms and then you pray through those Psalms, you pray that word back to him, say it back to him. And just what Heidi was saying, the one scary prayer that she highlighted, Psalm 139, the end of that, I think it's verse 11 and 12.
Yeah, I didn't know the verse and I didn't want to misquote it. So
it's okay. I just looked it up. I just looked it up yesterday, I think, on my live. So I think it's funny. But anyways, God does this. He connects it all. But that's where we would start. If you need help with that, go follow Heidi Mills Writes on Instagram and interact on her posts as well, because honestly, I think what she talks about over there would help in this area as well. And we're willing to interact with anyone that needs some help as well. So Heidi, did you have anything else that you would like to say or share?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a few things down.
I would love to hear anything because this is just a chat.
Yeah, I think, our story, that which is the title of this, is Letting God Write Our Story. There's a quote by Dan B. Allender that I love. It's actually one that I put in my book, but it says, take seriously the story God has given you to live. It's time to read your own life because your story is the one that could set us all ablaze. And I wanted to run from my story. I didn't want the story as it was playing out. And I'm probably not alone in that, where, yeah, right. And I'm like, why is this my story? Why is this happening to me? I don't want this. I didn't choose this. And it's that shifting that mindset to, I'm going to read the story of my life through the lens of, you're a good father. I'm your chosen child. And you want to work all of this for my good. And when we read our story like that and live that way, I think we will set other people ablaze.
And I love how he says he delights in us.
Yeah.
He delights in us. And Zephaniah 3:17, where he sings over us with shouts of joy. I mean, it's like, oh my goodness. And then another verse I think of is that really just, I mean, this is just Father God loving us in ways that we don't really dwell on a lot. But, if you as a good father know how to give good gifts, how much more do I? Mm-hmm. And that, Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you hope in a future. But my favorite verse there is that then you will come to me and you will seek after me. And when you seek after me with all of your heart, you will find me. There's a guarantee of finding God that I think there's a lot of fears that hold us back from from interacting. I would say just because I'm mostly talking about our walk with God, it's like, as believers, I think believers have fear of interacting with God because they're not dwelling on these topics that we're talking about, the verses and the subject matter that should be maybe the focus of our drive into intimacy with Jesus.
Yeah, and sometimes we're limited by our ability to receive or experience intimacy with him because of these unprocessed wounds that need healing.
Bring that back up.
because we need our belief system reformed, and that comes in the process of tearing those structures down and letting new ones be built. And that's the process of inner healing, which I don't see how you can do on your own. I think you need help. That's where I think you need a skilled prayer counselor to lead you through that experience. But if, we can only get so far in our intimacy with God and with others if our belief system is hindering closeness and hindering trust. So.
This speaks directly to me because, and there's layers because, and as time goes on and different people and different things come into your life, I don't know if there's ever a season. I basically said this yesterday. I don't believe that there's a stop and go season of prep. I believe that this preparation stuff, which would include, in my opinion, the inner healing stuff, preparing a place for the Lord in your heart and in your mind, in your thinking. And it's really about strength training our minds and our hearts in the place of openness for that. So the reason I said that is I don't think that you'll ever probably not want to have somebody on your side helping you process through.
Right.
I mean, there may be reprieves, season time frames where you're not like physically having somebody in your life to walk you through it. But I do think that with hard things, with big things like that, it's, like a marital something or a death of a child or
traumatic event somehow.
Yeah, some traumatic events. And I don't know if there's anyone alive that hasn't experienced some sort of trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of feels like the times we live in, where there is a lot of that goes on. But I think that's lost my train of thought there.
I think that we're on the same page here. The goal is connection. The goal is being fully connected to God. And when you move those things out of the way that you've built, that's hindering that full connection, you get to have that full intimacy. That's what it's all about. Yeah. And that, the sanctification process will keep happening. We'll keep being made into his likeness.
Right.
But if there's a lack of intimacy or connection, then that's where the deep healing.
Because I think you can start there. I think you can start at gaining understanding of who he is, how he interacts with people, like he's a good God. Mm-hmm. And anything that he does or says is pure and righteous and for the sake of your well-being. It's not for what was I saying the other day? It's, he's for us and not against us. And so that's kind of where I want to leave it at, is that I believe that if we come into that connection with the Lord, that we will be led into those places that we need to be in. For instance, getting help to seek inner healing. And because God will start to, as you interact with him, he's going to reveal the things. Mm-hmm. And he's also going to, again, write your story. Like he's going to give you blueprints. He's going to tell you steps to take. He's going to, he knows your language as well. So you don't have to be afraid of whether or not you can hear God. You can.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I guess anything else? One last thing to say?
Oh, one last thing. That's a lot of pressure.
Leave us on a high note.
You said this already, but he takes everything, the ashes, the broken things, and he makes them beautiful. And so if it's not good yet, he's not done.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's it for today's chat with Heidi Mills Wright. Thank you so much. And you can find her over on Instagram with that handle. And I'll also put it into the description so that you can easily find it later if you're not able to go there now and follow her. She does have a book coming out at some point, probably not for another year.
Probably in the spring of 2022.
So be on the lookout. You need to follow her because when that book comes out, you're going to want to get it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your day to do this. And this is such an important conversation. And I really, really super appreciate you being here.
Yeah. It was
okay,
fun.
guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.